Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. There's just not many programs that are having more success early in the transfer portal than Brian Kelly and LSU. Monday morning, late Monday morning, you might say, another commitment coming in for LSU. Former Florida defensive lineman Jack Pyburn committing to LSU. Where I want to start, one, Jack Pyburn, a very quality football player that's a proven commodity in the SEC, which is very hard to find. When you're an SEC program trying to address the line of scrimmage, it's hard to dip into like the Big 12 or the G5 because you're just not sure how those guys translate from the Group of Five level to the SEC when you can get proven commodities. Guys that are quality football players in the SEC. That matters. That's what Jack Pyburn is. But I want to start with this. I give Brian Kelly and LSU so much credit in terms of how they're performing early in the portal, where it's not just grabbing as many players as they can, although they've grabbed a lot of them. They're being very intentful. I mean, they've looked at this roster and said, all right, what are the positions that we need to make sure we address heading into 2025? That's exactly what they've done, right? Replacing a guy like Mason Taylor. You go grab Bauer Sharp. You need more juice in the wide receiver room. Go grab Barry and Brown. We need more depth on the defensive line, specifically at the edge spot. Jack Pyburn, Jamari Butler. We need a quarterback of the future, potentially. Michael Van Buren. Yes, LSU's grabbing a lot of players. You see a lot of programs go out and grab a lot of players. But the intent that LSU has, to me, has been very impressive. They've unquestionably upgraded this roster in the last week, and that's what matters in the transfer portal. Really excited to get into Jack Pyburn. I got some takes I want to get off my chest before we do, and as always, to the LSU fans, it's been a blast breaking down these commitments the last couple of days. The amount of support y'all continue to show, it's been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into Jack Pyburn. And where I want to start with Jack Pyburn is not only did he play very quality football for Florida in 2024, especially towards the back half of the season, this kid, to me, is just starting to find his stride. This is a guy that he's going to be solid for you, probably going to start for you in 2025. But what happens if the version of Jack Pyburn in 2024 gets better going into 2025, which I think is a very real possibility? This was a guy that was a role player in 2023, was kind of a role player early for Florida in 2024. Then you fast forward to the end of 2024, was one of the bigger difference makers that they had on the defensive line. And I think where you want to start with Jack Pyburn is really good against the run. He was second on the team in tackles for Florida in the 2024 season. I mean, he is really active along the line of scrimmage. Not only can he set the edge in the run game, but he can chase down backside, gets off blocks really well. His presence is going to be felt most in the run game, which I'm kind of okay with, because you look at some of the other edge rushes that LSU has, particularly the guys that they've had on this roster. I look at Kalaj Cobbins, Gabe Relaford, and say, those guys as pure pass rushers, I think they're dudes. Okay, so we need some edge rushers, or some edge defenders, you might say, that are a little bit better in the run game, a little bit more veteran, a little bit more of that grown man strength. Jack Pyburn, Jamari Butler. I mean, those are your edge guys that are going to stop the run at a high level. And then you have guys like Gabe and Kalaj Cobbins, who I think could be very fun pass rushers in the 2025 season. And then you kind of stack that with, it sounds like Harold Perkins might be back as well, who is by far one of the more impressive edge rushers that you see in the country when it is those third and long situations. LSU is addressing not only the positions, but the kind of players that I think they need in the transfer portal as well. You take a look at what LSU's done. I want to talk about a few other players first. Jamari Butler, Jack Pyburn, much needed veteran depth in that edge room. You look at Michael Van Buren with the loss of Bryce Underwood. He seems to me like he's going to be the guy at the quarterback position after Garrett Nussmeier in 2025. You needed a difference maker in the wide receiver rooms, particularly a guy that, in my opinion, could really excel after the catch. It just didn't feel like LSU had those wide receivers outside of a guy like Aaron Anderson that, when there was space created, who can you get the football to and change a game with? You had that with guys like Malik Neighbors. I don't know if you had that enough in 2024. Barry and Brown is certainly that guy. And then you look at Bauer Sharp coming in, probably going to be a starting tight end, allowing you to be really creative with a guy like Trey'Dez Green, and then Jakeem Jackson. Although not necessarily a proven commodity, I think every LSU fan that has watched LSU the last couple of years knows we can take all the talent and competitive depth we can get in the secondary. I look at LSU's landed 6 transfer portal targets so far. All 6 of them, in my opinion, are significantly impacting your roster either immediately or make a chance of like Michael Van Buren's case, like that just made sense. Maybe not for 2025, but it's going to make sense for the future outlook of this LSU team. So it's not only good players, it's not only a lot of players, the intent and the strategy, you might say, in terms of how Brian Kelly has addressed the transfer portal. It's been impressive early and doesn't sound like they're done. Nick Anderson sounds like that. Him to LSU, from what I read Monday morning, sounds like it's going in the right direction. This one makes a lot of sense. You look at what Nick Anderson can bring to the table, it kind of complements Barry Brown. Barry Brown can work vertically down the field, but I think Barry Brown is probably best suited as that all-around wide receiver that can separate, that can be dangerous after the catch. Do you want to add another guy that can stretch the defense vertically, kind of be that deeper third presence? I don't think it gets better than Nick Anderson. 6'5", 215 pounds, big physical presence that the only one year that we saw him healthy at Oklahoma averaged over 21 yards per catch. So he's kind of that deeper third wide receiver that could complement Barry and Brown extremely well. And then you look at a guy like Will Held. Now, I don't know if LSU takes Will Held after you took Jamari Butler and Jack Pyburn, but I think at the end of the day, you can never have enough depth on the defensive line. We talk about it all the time. It's important to have game records, but you also need depth too. I mean, you want to be able to rotate those big bodies on the defensive line. Will Held, I think, could be a bona fide starter. He is very good against the run too, but would provide more depth for LSU on the defensive line. We'll see if LSU can swing that on top of the Jack Pyburn, Jamari Butler commitments. I look at that edge room and say, I feel pretty good. Now, maybe you want to add another piece on the inside of the defensive line, but you look at LSU and what they're doing, and to me, it starts with they're doing what they need to in terms of the positions that were concerns. They're addressing them going into 2025, which, for lack of better terms, just felt like they didn't do that enough 12 months ago. They didn't really pay up for some of these guys that could clearly help that team, like a guy like Simeon Barrow or Dominic Williams. They're not making that mistake again. A lot of players, good players. It's quantity, quality, and like it makes sense at the positions of concern. That's what you're looking for in the transfer portal. Really good start for Brian Kelly. Doesn't sound like it's slowing down anytime soon. So we'll keep updating the commitments as they come in. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.